in Putin's speech, he also spoke very highly for the soldiers in Russia. He's speaking very highly of the armed forces in Russia. There was a time about in September 2022 when the term mobilization had come up in Russia, that Putin is wanting to mobilize more people to join the army. Do you feel this kind of rhetoric about the armed forces in Russia is a subdued way or a subliminal way to mobilize more people to join the army? Because clearly Russia needs more people on the front if this war is going to continue.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that in terms of manpower, the Russians, they don't have enough manpower now to achieve their goals. We hear in the last few weeks that the scale of the amount of casualties that the Russians are suffering in eastern Ukraine is very, very high. Sometimes the 100 soldiers a day. And I think that from that perspective, it's a real problem for the Russians, which makes it very hard for them to achieve their goals, even within eastern Ukraine. We hear that the battles around the city of Bakhmut in the Donetsk area in eastern Ukraine already takes place like around maybe months already, and there is no clear win there for the Russians. I think that it proves us how difficult the battlefield is and how fierce the battle is.
Yeah, if you were to look at the US over here, what do you feel they would want to achieve to be able to, which would spell the end of the war? For Russia, of course, eastern Ukraine they're going after it, everybody knows that. But for US, what would be the eventual aim which would satiate them and would want to end? It's just Russia backing off, or does US intend to gain something else out of this entire conflict?
Well, I think that at the moment, and as we can also hear from American officials, I think that they are supporting Ukraine in order to make it possible for the Ukrainian army to push the Russian army back to the lines at least of the 22nd of February last year. And of course, it means for the Russians to withdraw their forces from southern Ukraine, from the Kherson area, and from the Zaporizhia area, and of course from the eastern Ukraine. This is, I think, the official line of the Americans. But at the same time, I think that this war is within the American interests because practically it weakens a lot the Russian army. We see within the last year the amounts of casualties that the Russians suffered. They lost a lot of equipment, thousands of tanks. From the Americans' perspective, I think that it's a good development, but at the same time, it also might be a dangerous one because it pushed Russia. Maybe it might push Russia to be with it back to the wall, and then we might see even a further escalation, even a possible use of nuclear weapons. So this is a very complicated, reality, and I think that I don't see the Americans stopping supporting Ukraine because they are also, as you mentioned, they involved too much. They already invested around $30 billion in supporting Ukraine, and therefore I don't see how they are backing off unless we're going to see a change in Washington, in the administration, in the next elections. But we still have time for that, so we need to wait and see.
Yeah, if I were to just divide the two sides, and if we were to just look at who's on which side, of course you have NATO and you have the entire West on one side. There was news that Pakistan has been supplying rockets to Ukraine, if we were to add Pakistan to that bloc. There was also news of Israel supporting Ukraine, if we were to put Israel in that bloc. On the other side, we have Russia, Iran and China, which have been finding common ground lately. Then you have Israel, then you have Iran obviously providing drones to Russia. Do you feel North Korea would also get added to this equation towards Russia's side, in this year at least?
Sorry, can you repeat the last part of your question?
Do you feel North Korea would get added to the equation on Russia's side?
Well, this is, again, I think that this is a very complex reality,
right?
Because each country which is getting involved in this has also its own interests.
Yes.
For example, when we speak about Iran is supporting Russia now, and the two countries are getting closer and closer. While Israel, from its perspective, is very worried because the Iranians, for example, are using the drones in order they're providing drones to Russia, and they are being used in Ukraine. And these tools are, in a future day, might be used also against Israel. And Israel is of course, very, very worried. And it's also, Israel see how Russia is getting closer and closer to Iran, and train the Iranian pilots in Russia. So this is, for Israel, of course, is also very, very worrying. I think that from that perspective, there are so many different developments, and we need to keep following, what's going on. And I can only wish that we're not going to see an escalation to a wider conflict or a global scale.
If you look at North Korea, and if you look at the Korean Peninsula, there is already an escalation happening there. There are bombs falling, there are ballistic missiles falling at Japan's exclusive economic zone every now and then. If North Korea gets added to this equation along with Russia, that is obviously going to take the entire situation into a very, very global scale, which is only going to spell doom for every other country. My question was, do you feel there are any chances of North Korea getting included or getting attached to the Russian motive?
Yeah, I think that we need to be very clear. North Korea is already supporting Russia. From what we know, North Korea is providing Moscow with ammunition, with artillery shells, and with the other ammunition. So it's not that North Korea is standing and sitting on the fence. North Korea is already supporting Russia, and this is the reality. The amount or the scale of the support is probably is limited to what I said, right. But we need to wait and see if it will get worse. I don't know, but this is how it is at the moment.
Thank you for all those updates, Yair. It's been a nice, informative chat with you. And let's hope year 2 with Russia and Ukraine spells some kind of de-escalation for the entire world.